Hi, my name is Rachel McLeod, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And I want to talk today about the best place to start when eliminating symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, or traumatic stress, because some people have one, the other, or a combination, or all of those. And I treat them all the same because we're working with the brain and we're helping the brain heal itself. And help people walk their brain through the brain's natural healing process so that their brain will restore healthy function and therefore eliminate these symptoms from happening. And so, but so that's really what I want to talk about today is where to start, because you may be anywhere in your journey. On this process to eliminating symptoms. Maybe you just got a diagnosis of either an anxiety disorder or depression or traumatic stress, or it just came onto your radar that you even have anything going on. Maybe you've been noticing new symptoms and you've been Googling, or maybe you've been battling one of these illnesses for decades. Wherever you're at in your journey, I think that it can be really nice to wash the slate clean and figure out a starting point and go. And and this is where I have people start. And even if you're like really good at this stuff, like I start over here all the time. Or whenever I want to, because well, I'll tell you a little while. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But it is a journey that we're going on because we don't want to just eliminate a symptom. That's not the goal here. The goal is to eliminate symptoms and resolve entire disorders so that your whole brain, well, we want to make sure your whole brain is functioning well so that you don't have disorders. And that's really possible. And it's what we are doing here. Okay, I got sidetracked because I saw Marie is commenting. Yes, awesome. She said it's perfect timing for her. Okay, so that's really what I want to talk about today is that journey, where to start. And sometimes, and I'm also sharing this because sometimes people get graduated from therapy and they've never done this part, they've never gone through the steps, or maybe they stop in the beginning. And I want you to understand, if this is where you have been, this is the starting point. There is more down the road. Okay, and so I want you to have that in mind because we want to resolve this whole thing, and really get you free from that. So and this is where I start people. And this is why I say it's the best, because I like to hit and quit disorders. I like to hit them and quit them. And what I find is that I did this building my own template. I got trained in interventions and I started using them how they were taught. And then I was like, I bet we could do two of these things at one time. And so we do that. And sure enough, you can do two at the same time. You can do three things at the same time. You can do four things at the same time. And so that's what I have done. And this does multiple things at the same time. And so, and I really like this starting place. And this is what I think it's the best because you can, even with very little skills, you can get big results from just this starting point. And I like that, especially because then people are like, what else is coming on now, Rachel? Like they trust me more because they've seen all these results, and then they're ready to dive in even deeper and learn and take the next steps. And so it really creates a lot of victory. It's really and a lot of easy low hanging fruit you can resolve. So I'm going to tell you what this is, and we'll get started. So um, I where I like to have people start is by working on the stressors that are currently coming up in their life, right? On one day, like let's say if I really could, this is what I would do. I would hook people up to a bunch of electrodes. I don't even know if I'm even saying that word right. Like that's how I am not scientific. Like I am nosy, but I'm not in there, right? And I would have them go through their day, 2 days, maybe three, and I wish I could get a pulse, like how's their heart rate doing? What's their brain activity doing? Because when I'm looking at their stressors, this is what I'm looking at, and this is what I start imagining in my head. And once I start to see where the stressors are, then I'm thinking, is there a pattern? If we Which one do we get rid of first? Because if we can get rid of one that actually takes rid of three, how awesome would that be? That would really give them a lot more space. Sometimes there's just one that's big. So maybe we're going to go after that first, or maybe we're going to go after that last. But when we get all the stressors out and we can look at them all, then that's really where we will start. Okay. If you have been watching my other videos, you know that what we're going to do here is we're going to use some really powerful interventions. And when I'm working with people, I teach them four. I teach them emotional freedom techniques, thought filled therapy, EMDR, and energy medicine. Those are the ones I'm teaching. Some people don't like all four. Some people only want one. That's fine. I'm just looking for the right match for them to get them equipped to be able to work through the emotional, mental, physical, energetic, spiritual, I think I said, and maybe even physical challenges that work together to make up a stressor. Stressors are very complex. And there's also different layers of stressors there that are playing into this. There's the subconscious level, there's the conscious level, all your thoughts, your subconscious programming, right? So that's the first one. And then there's the survival levels that are involved with this stressor. And there's the somatic distress that's involved with the stressor. All stress comes in your body and in your mind, like everything's connected. And so when we're talking about a stressor, I am having, because people don't typically have problems with their problems. We can solve problems. We're really great at that. We have problems with how we feel about our problems. And we have subconscious distress about how we feel about this. We have survival distress about how we're feeling about a problem. We have somatic distress. And then we have, our thoughts can go haywire. And so you have this one problem, but your whole body and your whole mind is reacting. And so it makes it really difficult to resolve this thing. And that works really great for me because this stressor also at the root of it holds valuable clues about who you are, why the stressor is here in the first place, and if when we resolve this one, we learn how to resolve many other ones. And so one stressor can really take us really far. It can take us really far. Anyway, um, and so a stressor. So the stressors are anything that you don't feel great about in your life right now. It can be your financial areas. It can be individual people in your life. It can be your job, your employer, your relationship. Any of these things can be your stressors. Walking your dog, um, that neighbor down the road. Those are stressors. All of this stuff is made up of all of you. And so we want to learn about all of you and we want to help all of you come together to resolve your problems. Because in one stressor, if that stressor is not getting resolved and it's in there in your life, there is a challenge either subconsciously at the survival level. Like every time you even think about it, you're going into fight, flight, freeze, or faint. And so you don't think about it because you don't want to do that. Or there's conscious problems about it where you're just thinking all these random thoughts that don't make sense to you and that are not in alignment of your values, or maybe your thoughts are racing. And then there's somatic distress that, maybe that neighbor, every time you think about that neighbor, your stomach gets like your stomach drops. And so you want to just go over there and be kind and be yourself and resolve whatever challenge you've got with them, but your whole body is working against you. And it could be because of post-traumatic stress. It could be because of anxiety. It could be because of depression. It could be because of any of these things, right? And so stressors are very simple, but they are very complex and they're made up of lots of things. But if you can grab one of these stressors, what you want to do is you really want so I like to have people start here because you don't need a lot of skill with interventions to resolve a stressor. Like for instance, you can pick up a really fast, easy to learn one like emotional freedom techniques and start taking the stressor apart. You can start working on the, oh my gosh, when I think about this, I'm going to throw up, right? And so you can work on that. And in a minute or two, that stomach sensation is gone. And then when that stomach sensation is gone, your subconscious mind might say, yeah, but what about this? Remember that one time? And now, or I don't know what it might be saying, or you might hear your mom's voice about it and see, you're always causing problems with people, you might hear that, right? That would be some subconscious stuff. Or you might be feeling some survival stuff like defensiveness and resistance and those sorts of things. We're going to grab whichever one is standing out the most and we're going to use an intervention on it, and we're going to pick this thing apart and feed it through your brain's healing pathways until you can look at the problem, the stressor, and be like, oh, Okay, I'm just going to go over there and talk with them because, yeah, not a big deal. And then we know you're done with that. And that is really, really what happens. And so, and when we get these stressors, we can go after one and then another and then another and then another. And some of them are so complex, you start working on them and you really can't get very far. And that's okay. You want to keep moving to the other ones. And this is a really wonderful place to start because number one, you're building skills. Number two, you're learning how to use the tools. That's building skills. And then you've got and then you're learning about you're learning to keep a little bit closer in step with yourself, which is a very important for the whole journey. The whole journey of eliminating symptoms is a process of reconnecting with yourself. And so if you have a lot of times, if you have symptoms of anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, where you want to be is not here with yourself. You want to be somewhere else. You want to be checked out. You want to be in scrolling on this stuff. And yeah, I get that. When you don't have tools, please feel free to not interrupt that. But once you have tools, it's time to clean this stuff up and reconnect, because when you can reconnect, that's when you're able to keep in step with yourself. That's when you're able to make decisions for yourself. That's when you're able to set boundaries. That's when you're able to create win-win situations in interactions with others, instead of what typically people will do is either create where they're winning and then losing interactions, which makes us feel terrible, momentary high, and then later it makes us feel terrible, and then the repercussions, they want to come hunt us down. Or sometimes we're taking a loss so they can win, and that a lot of times is because we're not connected. We don't know what we want, we don't know what we need, and we can't show up in the moments when life is asking us, hey, who are you and how are you going to show up here. We're like, I don't even know. My survival center is over there, my subconscious is over here, my body is twisting in knots, and I can't think clearly. And then life is happening and you're like saying, oh, okay, fine, we'll just do that, and it has nothing to do with your highest good. Right? It has nothing to do with that, and we want to, and that really can create stressors. And that's why in the moment you might be having challenges with your kids, because you're everywhere and you can't show up grounded and centered and ready to be. And so when we work on that outside of the scenario, like, right, if I have you do this in the morning, or if you're doing this with me in a session, we can take this stressor, start ironing it out, right? And get it all smooth and run it a couple times. How's that feel subconsciously? How's that feel in your survival level? Anything triggering? No? Okay, what thoughts are coming up? Right? Oh, those thoughts are actually match who you are. That's great. And then how's your body feeling? Okay, and maybe we need to do a little bit more ironing. And then you put that on and you go out there and you're with your kid and you're actually present, or you're with your relationship, or you're at work and you're actually able to speak because you're not all in survival mode. And maybe that selective mutism is grabbing your throat, right? Or maybe your thoughts are racing and you can't speak because you can't catch one of those thoughts to talk about. So if you can, I really had a good time there, but I think I'm off track. Okay, but the point here is that in these stressors, let me go back to my notes so that we're together here. So starting over these stressors, we want to gather a lot of information about them, and they're right there. They're right in your life all the time. They're right here. And when you look at these stressors as portals into resolving your anxiety, your symptoms, eliminating symptoms, that's really what they are. And they're not just here because you this or you that, or you're not good enough to. No, they're here because you're like, they're showing up here at the top because something under here is off. It's like kind of like the princess and the pea. It's like you got all these mattresses, but under here there's a little pea, and it's causing all these problems at the top. It's like that. We want to get under there and we want to clean that stuff out at the deepest level so that we can lay everything back on top and then see what happens now. How does that feel? Right? And these stressors are that. They're showing up at the top, distress, but really there's so many things going on underneath. And with very minimal tapping skills, or intervention skills, you can really get to the bottom of that. So you want to use interventions, and you want to gather information, you want to gather clues about this. And every clue that you're gathering, you want to pull it through the healing pathways. Sometimes you can gather them up and say, hey, let's everybody aboard this little boat that's coming through healing pathways. Or sometimes you're going to need to do it one by one by one. It doesn't matter. Um, and the questions that we want, your brain is like inside there, there's like this little Jack Russell Terrier that every time you ask a question, your brain has to go solve it and retrieve that information and bring it back to you. Now, a lot of times, you know, people dismiss what's brought back. They dismiss the answers that the brain brings to them. And they're like, that's stupid. That doesn't matter. You're just making excuses. And they dismiss it. But really, that's the stuff. Don't dismiss that. And hear what your brain is telling you, and then use your interventions and pull that through. And so really when you're, and I'm giving you a lot of information. Many of you are like, I really don't want that much information. Some of you absolutely are following me, and I love that. Wherever you're at with this, I want you to, the takeaway here is just really to look at the challenges that you're facing, the stressors in your life. Those are keys to eliminating symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Because when you get that right with the stressors, let me tell you, I wrote down 3 things that's going to happen when you get this right. You release the emotional and somatic distress involved with the stressor. You're going to release the emotional distress and the somatic, which is the body level, the body's distress. Like if you're thinking about that neighbor and your heart starts racing or your stomach drops, that's the body's experience of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. And that's somatic distress. Okay. And so when you're using the interventions, that's the stuff you're releasing, which actually frees this stuff from the back of your brain and brings it to the front of your brain. And where it's in the front of your brain, all parts can come together to really work on resolving that. And then upgrading who you are, how you behave, how you function. And once it gets all in there, it's just a matter of seconds to minutes to sometimes days until you start to notice dramatic changes in what the work that you just did. Okay, so that is huge. That is the biggest component. And I find that people are really, really, really good at this with even hardly any skills. So if you take a stressor and an intervention and you get going there, you're going to do fantastic, even if you're not very good at it. Even if, like, I give you this axe and give you no training and you just go and you try to, chop a tree down, you're going to figure out how to chop that stressor down, right? And that's really what we're talking about here. And if that's the only piece you do here, you're rocking. Okay. Second thing you're going to do, if when you're working at the stressors level, is you're gonna find clues that take you further into the root issues of things. So even if you're only working at the surface level of your stressors, you're clearing out a path where you can actually see where the next pathway is. And so this is huge. Working on stressors is huge. And then the other thing that's going to happen is that you're going to gather a deeper understanding about yourself. And this is hugely important because we're going to need this moving forward. We're going to need to know very specific details about who you are, what you like, what your preferences are, what your skill set is, what your strengths are, what your values are, different nuances between this situation and that situation, what allows you to move forward this, what holds you back with this. We're going to need to know where you need specific support because this is the information that you're going to create and build with. And so when you're working through stressors, you're going to find a lot of these things and you're going to start plugging them in. You're going to have lots of aha, oh, well, I just need to do this. And then all of a sudden the stressors start moving. And throughout our whole journey, this is the information we're gathering. We're looking for stressors. We're looking for clues that take us deeper into the root. And then we're trying to pick up specific information about you. And stressors can really do all of that. And I really like it because they really do clear out a whole forest of challenges so that you can really see clearly to see what your next thing is when you're going to get more specific and you're going to get down closer to the root and you're going to grab more things in there. So that's really, really helpful. Now I'm going to show you my diagrams because I got fancy and actually I'm going to treat you to what my clients get, which is my fabulous art skills. Don't be jealous, or go ahead and be jealous. It's a fabulous emotion when it moves properly. You don't want that stuff getting stuck. But Um, so when clients come to me, a lot of times their brains look like this. Total stress, right? Most of the time their brains look like this. They have this much room to work with, and then the rest of their brain is stressed, right? Lots of stress. And so when you're in this place, it's really hard to do deep work because you're bumping into stress everywhere you go. And you're just bumping into stress. And people are stressed. And it's much easier to do deep work if people can be in a reduced stress, more relaxed, comfortable place. And so that is why I have people start here, because what happens, even with basic skills, they can start to really. I have people do about a week of this work, which is about 14 hours, which is, if you're doing weekly sessions for an hour, that's about 3.5 months of therapy, of weekly sessions. So it's a lot that we get done in a week. And when you go from this, and then after this week, you come to a place like this, which may not be significant, look significant to you, but this, we've doubled their brain space. We've doubled their energy. We've doubled their ability to think straight. We've doubled their the time in which they can be in a regulated state. And that regulated state is where most healing happens. That's when your body is able to detoxify. That's whatever, all these things. So what happens is when people come back to me about a week later, their mood has elevated, they're thinking more clearly, they're more grounded, they're more centered, they're more optimistic, and they are ready to do more work. And that is really what I'm looking for. I want to clear this space out, and then we're ready for using a bigger tool than this one. This one is not the biggest tool. It's effective and it gets a lot of stuff done, but it's a beginner one. And so it's effective, but it is a beginner one. Hold on a second. Okay. So I'm sorry. I have to just make sure because I am not a fan of. I do have still. I'm grossed out by anything coming out of someone's nose. I am a social worker and not a nurse. Okay, that stuff. Okay, so with this much stuff, with this much energy, reallocated, we're going to use it for more healing and moving to the next stuff, which, because the next steps are going to deeper levels, that means there can be more shaking on the up levels, right? And as the higher you get up, like, because we're going to go down deeper, and if there's any shake, it's going to be felt bigger at the top, right? And we want to keep the shaking minimal, but it does help a ton when you can get to the top level and there's more stuff cleared out and you have more space for a little bit of wobble, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I start here. And then, just to give you a piece, this is really what we want. Something like this. I just made this up. But this is where we want to go. We want to get all this stuff cleared out, so that there's some stress, because that's how brains grow. We create stress for ourselves. Just like if you were lifting weights, you don't just lift weights, you lift just enough to stress out your muscles, and then there's repair, and then there's growth. Humans are the same way, and so there's always going to be some stress, but we want it to be tolerable. We want it to be helpful, right? It's not helpful for you if you go into the gym and you hurt yourself on this stuff and your muscles are all strained, and which is happening to you with all this anxiety, depression, traumatic stress. That's why we have to resolve this. And so, but this place right here, starting at that place with stressors, is really, really empowering. And so I want you just to look through your life and look at those things and grab them up and start. You can even start a journal with them. You can do that stuff, and you can look, how many stressors do you have going on right now? It's everywhere you look. You got work to do. And if it's just in a couple places, and sometimes it's hard when there's so much, and it's hard when there's like hardly any, and there's still issues in there. Those two places can be really challenging to really work with. because just the nature of if you have enough skills to find the little P at the bottom, and pull it out, or in the other case, if you have enough tools to skill to work through massive amounts of challenges, symptoms, right? Um, but yeah, and that's really what I wanted to share. That's really the best place is stressors. You know, everybody knows what they are, everybody can recognize them, and you can really build a lot of skills about them and learn a lot about yourself. So that is what I would say is the best place to start, and and resolving them. You know, you can do. I think this little this starting place is brilliant. Um, Really, because I've seen people this I've had clients who've come to me to work on stopping panic attacks that when they're driving, and this is the only intervention they needed, like done with this first week we were done. Then we were just like, okay, let's work on the other things, you know, let's start taking it deeper. So these stressors, don't underestimate them. They are kind of okay, yeah, a beginner place, but they provide so many opportunities for you. And so if you can master that, you can really master anything. They give you everything you need to get some more brain space back, to really start feeling healthier and improve your mood, and then also to really prepare to do some deeper dives. Okay, so that's what I have for you. You feel free to ask me any questions about that. Oh, you're welcome, Marie. Um, and so if this is something that you want help with, if you are like, oh my God, Rachel, what even did you just say? It sounds like it's important and I want to do that. And you want my help to walk you through this. I have two opportunities to work with me. And one is an 8-week program. And this is for people who have a moderate amount of insight into themselves, have some sophistication, right? You've done therapy before, you've read self-help books, you have tried to work with these symptoms before, and you're really positioned to really get some phenomenal results in my 8-week program. um, and I link to that up in the header of this. I don't know what that thing's called. um, but you can look there for links and stuff like that. I have another opportunity to work with people who are wanting a less intensive route, and who want to be empowered with this stuff, but maybe aren't certain if they want to go the whole 8 weeks, or maybe they know I'm going to need to just stay here for a little while, because I have so many stressors, or I think it's going to take me longer, whatever. And that is a 30-day program with me, and I teach you this skill, and I make sure the skill is on tight for you, and that we get results, and we resolve those things, and we resolve the stressors and the emotional distress, and we get those clues and get to the root and start doing some clearing in there, and also learn so much about you. And then I also, with that one, I help you to find the events where these things are taking place, and to resolve them there, because that opens up a whole nother thing, which I probably will do another video on soon. And oh, hold on. And then and so that so those are two opportunities to work with me if this is something that you want to start, if you're the right fit for this program, and I want to make sure that you are, because it works best when everyone's the right fit. So, but if that's what you're interested in, go ahead and send me a message on Messenger or through my business page, and we'll talk about it. We'll discuss and see if your situation is the right one, for that I can get you results, and we'll dive in there. So let's see if there's anything else before I jump off. I'm going to scroll down. I don't see any questions. Um, yeah, I think that's it. All right, then. Wonderful hanging out, and please feel free to ask any questions on here. You know that I want to share processes with you, how I do things, and it's a new way of communicating for me, because I walk people through this much differently than just explaining it. So if there's anything that was confusing to you, or you want to know more about, go ahead and leave a message here. I am watching, I am looking, and I will respond to that. Maybe that will even be another video that I will do to specifically answer your questions. So have a great night, and look at those stressors, and see them as opportunities instead of places where life is kicking your butt, which, possibly that's happening. But it feels a lot better when you can start turning that around and seeing that these are really opportunities. And when you can use an intervention with them and actually capitalize on that opportunity, it really helps start to steamroll the feeling of being victorious and really having hope and faith that this thing can be resolved because it can. Okay. All right. Good night. Take care.